Hey guys, welcome to Rabbit's Used Cars and welcome to the studio today. I hope everybody's staying safe out there with all the quarantine mess going on and all this virus craziness right now. You know, I thought I'd share a good laugh with you. You know, I told everybody my story back in January, you know, the hardest story I never told. And I kind of left off and I want to pick back up and talk a little bit about the stand-up comedy thing because I get a lot of questions about that. So keep in mind, you know, I just found out my son wasn't mine. You know, going through a horrible divorce. You know, the eBay fiasco came to an end right there. I mean, that was a nightmare. I mean, everything was crashing down around me. And literally, I was working at a little small town Ford dealership and just kind of depressed, you know, drinking a little more than I probably should and sitting at home, you know, really wasn't hitting it much. And I had a buddy of mine come up to me and said, man, I'm going to get you out of that house. You know, everybody's got that friend that's like that, you know, is always trying to help. And he tried for several weeks. And I'm like, man, I just don't feel like going out. You know, I don't feel like that. And, you know, and I guess you just got to be ready. He came by the house and he's like, come on, we're going out tonight. And I agreed. You know, so we left and went out to this little bar right down from the dealership, actually, ironic enough. We sat down, having a beer in this little bar. And, you know, everything's going smooth. And they were having like an open mic night. And you had guys there that were, you know, singers, and you had people doing like poetry slams or whatever you call them. And then you had some comedian guys there. And there was like a group of them. And so all those guys kind of got up at the end, you know, they had their little notepads and looking at their jokes, you know, had their little bar stool beside them and their water. And they would tell their jokes. And yeah, and then some were funny and most weren't, but you know, it is what it is. You know, beer was cold, music sucked. We're sitting there, my buddy said, you ought to do this. He said, Rob, you cut down everybody you're around. You always make people laugh. And keep in mind, I mean, I wasn't at my best then. I don't know what it was, but I remember sitting there on that bar stool at that little bar, and I'm like, it. So I took my beer, walked right up on stage. I don't even remember asking anybody if I could do it. I just literally took the 2 steps up on stage and set my beer down on the stool and started making fun of everybody in the front row. Just started picking. About 10 minutes of that, I had enough. I needed a fresh beer. Guys, we'll catch you next time. I walked back down and give me another beer. Well, I'm sitting there sipping beer. Me and my buddy are laughing, cutting up. And this big dude comes walking up. Big guy. I mean, just glasses. He goes, hey, you're funny. I said, thanks. He goes, I'd like to get your phone number, if at all possible. He said, I work for a radio station. Now keep in mind, this is way before I was ever in radio. And, you know, I didn't think anything about it. And he gave me his card. And of course, I had all the different radio stations on the back of it, you know, for this radio company. Well, ironically, it's Intercom of the same radio station I work for now. And, but you know, I had all their stations there. So I had no idea what he was talking about or whatever. So I got his card. I gave him my contact information. I actually gave him my dealership card from the Ford store. Keep in mind, you know, I started losing a little bit of weight in this time frame. And this part of my life, everything gets really crazy. The motorcycle wreck happens. I literally just got out of a cast out of my leg. I'll remember it because I just sold the house that I lived in because I didn't want to live there anymore. I didn't feel comfortable there. And, you know, I was starting to kind of get back to the old Rob, but I wasn't comfortable there. I got where I wanted to stay at my girlfriend's house all the time. I didn't want to stay in that house because I had so many memories of, you know, my son in that house. And you know, and the house necessarily didn't do anything, but it's just those memories are there. So like, you know, now when I hear those stories about, you know, somebody that grew up in a house that was abused and doesn't want to come back, like I feel their pain. I understand where they're coming from after this. So anyway, I ended up selling the house. I rented a small place out in Travelers Rest, and you know, old Rob was kind of back in the dating scene again. So what did I do? I was going to the tanning salon to get my tan on, and my phone rings. And he goes, hey, you don't remember me, but I'm the guy you met at the comedy bar. And I'm like, yeah, vaguely, I remember you. He goes, I've been looking for your number. I've been looking for your card. I just found it. And I know it's extremely short notice, but do you think you could be at the radio station at 7:30 in the morning? We're having a comedy competition, and I meant to give you like a few weeks notice. It's my off day at the dealership. I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Still have no idea who it was for or whatever. Well, it was for one of the biggest rock channels in town, and they were having their version of Last Comic Standing. So I show up at the radio station, ironically the same one we record at every week now, but 10 years earlier, and I walk in, and there's this big conference room upstairs. So I go in the elevator and go upstairs. We go to this conference room, and this place is packed. I mean, there's just shoulder to shoulder, nut to butt. Everybody's just packed in there, all these guys. There was 112 people that was in this contest. And basically how they were thinning them out was you had 2 minutes to tell jokes to some of the station producers, some producers at the station, and they picked their favorites. You had a group A and a group B. Group B went home. Group A moved on to the next round. Well, I did mine. A couple hours later, they picked me out of the crowd again and said, hey, you're going to the next round. Well, we do that, and it gets down to the final 5, and we did that in one day. So keep in mind, this afternoon at this point. None of us have never been on the radio yet or anything. This is all in this conference room in a little side office. So the final 5 get to be on the radio. You have 1 minute to tell clean comedy, radio friendly. So I'm thinking, all right, I can do this, So I get up and I do my thing, in the radio station. Very first time I ever been in a radio studio in my life. First thing they commented was, God, you sound like Matthew McConaughey on the radio. The lady, her name is Paige. I actually know her now because I work with her. But at the station, then she goes, you sound like Matthew McConaughey. I said, well, don't you know that's a cruel trick? I tell you, it shows you God has a sense of humor. I said, he makes me look like the guy from Rascal Flatts, but I sound like Matthew McConaughey. She said, well, that's not all that bad. I said, why the hell can I look like Matthew McConaughey and sound like the damn guy from Rascal Flatts? And everybody started laughing. And I hadn't even got on mic yet. So we jump up, I do my thing. Well, they got it narrowed down from 5 to 2. It's me and this guy named Jim. Jim was from Hendersonville, North Carolina, about 45 minutes up the road. And we came back the following week for kind of like a shootout, and then it was an audience participation. So they got to vote for their favorite. Well, it got down between me and Jim. We had 2 minutes each this time to tell our jokes. Clean comedy, radio friendly. Got up, I did my thing. And I didn't even know what I was going to win. I never got no details about this or anything. I won this thing for a pair of Stone Temple Pilots tickets. The cool thing was there was a house comic there. And his name was Jeremy Pierce. He's a traveling comic. He does, 200 shows a year. He's that guy that every hole-in-the-wall comedy club, he plays it, he knows it, he knows the owner, he knows the waitress, he knows everybody there. He knows everybody. He's a traveling comic. This guy's been doing it for years. He used to tour. I'm going to make myself feel really old. And I was little when this guy was telling jokes. But Gallagher, the dude that liked to smash watermelons with the big hammer, the big mallet, he actually used to tour with him like back in the early 80s. Jim had a lot of years under his belt, but he had a lot of experience. And Jim sat down with me there because they were planning a comedy tour with the radio station. And he said, I'd like to take you along with me. It's local. He said, just on the weekends, we play different clubs in the listening area. And, basically just big open mic nights. And he said, you can be like my feature and I'll be the headliner. I mean, that was awesome. And I said, buddy, I've never wrote material in my life. He said, hey, look me up on MySpace. And I looked him up and it says he lives in Los Angeles, California. Well, I'm gonna tell you something about the entertainment industry. It's not exactly what you think it is. He actually lived in Lyman, South Carolina. He put his address as living in Los Angeles to make him look a little more important. Had a nice home, met his wife, his kids, and all this stuff. And he sat down, and Jeremy smoked like a freight train. And I mean, like I've always smoked, but this guy smokes. We were sitting out on his back porch and, he's showing me little tricks, like he said, this is the problem. He said, I want you to go up and tell me some jokes. Just put you on the spot. So I get up there and I do my thing, and You're telling your jokes. And I'm like, this. And a big problem is when you get up on stage, you're scared you're going to forget something. So naturally, you speed through it. He said, slow down. He said, keep in mind, these people have been drinking. Slow down. Give it time to sink in. You get every punchline. And I'm like, well, how do you slow yourself down? He said, basically, you got to time yourself. And you know how like musicians use like metronomes, the thing goes back and forth. He said, I'm going to show you how to time yourself. And I'll even show you a little trick next time you watch a stand-up comedian on stage. You're up on stage and you're walking back and forth. You ever notice you got comics? Comics never sit stationary. They always move. So that's how they time themselves. I'm telling you the joke, punchline. Telling you the joke, punchline. Telling you the joke, punchline. They're not working the stage. They're timing themselves when they do that. Now, granted, once you get to a certain point, it's just natural. But that's how you slow yourself down. Talk, punchline. Talk, just like a typewriter. Back. And you're working that stage. He said, I don't give a damn if that stage is 6 foot wide or 60. I want you to walk every end of it. That's how you time yourself. So he had this big rug out on his porch, and we'd walk to the end of the rug and back. Punchline. Walk to the end of the rug. Punchline. Walk to the end of the rug. And then I got like about a third of the way in my set, and I'd like forget a line. Well, what do you do? What do you do when you forget a line? Now, granted, if you've done it 100 times, you're not going to forget. He goes, you're a smoker. He said, let me show you. He said, sit down. Let me show you a trick. So I sit in the chair. He gets up there and he starts doing a little bit. He pulls out his cigarettes. And back then you could smoke in clubs. And he pulls out his cigarettes and, pulls a cigarette out. And, what are you looking at? You don't off at your job? And then he rolls on telling his joke. Well, what are you talking about? You just got a cigarette. What, do you stop and think about it? He had a business card with the first line for every bit in his set, stuck in a cellophane in his cigarettes. And you'll notice that with a lot of comedians, and a lot of times they're either in their pocket or they'll have them laying up on the stool. You'll even see notes. I've seen notes taped to stools before back in the day, but that was a neat little trick you used to do. And that was the thing. Like, it also burned up time. So you could take a set that normally would take you 7 minutes, well, doing that little stunt right there and a few other little moves. Now you done made a 10, 11, 12-minute set out of it. And you got another laugh in, and then you get your zone back in, get your cigarette, and you're back, forth, reverse, proceed back on. And I learned so much thing about working a crowd. He said, you always want to spot that one person in the audience that's the easy target. There's always one somewhere, and he showed me a lot of tricks, and he said, you're going to get hecklers. Well, I've never had a heckler before. I did a damn open mic. I never did anything before that till this. And he goes, when you get a heckler, you know what you do? You stop. Don't argue with them. Arguing with them is kind of like replying to stupid comments on your YouTube. It does no good at all. It's like, what'd you do? You're getting paid to be there. You stop. Hell, let him work. Offer him the mic. That usually shuts them up pretty quick, So I learned all these little tricks. And a lot of them that I can't tell you on YouTube because they get pretty vulgar, but they're fun. So we actually did our very first show in Spartanburg at Sidelines Sports Club. And the reason they chose this place is because it was huge. I mean, it was bigger than this warehouse. It's this monstrous-ass sports club, and it had pool tables everywhere, and they took and put tops on top of the pool tables and had chairs around the pool tables, had chairs around the stage, had a pretty good sized stage, had a decent audio system. I was a nervous wreck. All the guys from the radio station was there, and we're standing there, and they bring me on. This is the winner of our last comic standing competition, Mr. Rob Pitts. I wasn't Rabbit on stage, I was Rob Pitts, and I get up there and I tell my jokes, and I do my little set, and everything went great with it, like it went fun. But I remember how nervous I was. I actually forgot to even tell you a funny part. So when we got there, Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I know I'm going to get some comments for people that live in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Spartanburg, South Carolina has a nickname. They call it Murderburg. They film cops in Spartanburg, South Carolina. It's a little rough at times, and this club was no different from anything else in Spartanburg. When we first got there, me and the girl I was dating at the time, we got out of the car, and there's this dude who, a big, he looked like Terry Crews, you know, just a big black guy. And he comes up and he goes, he had a Top Flight golf hat on, and he had a 9mm on his side. He goes, hey, you one of them funny guys? Yeah, you know. And he goes, if anybody gives you any shit, you just yell Top Flight, and I got you. So basically, I felt like his prison bitch, you know, but anyway, whatever. Top Flight was taking care of me. Yeah, we did that show and the show went great. You know, nobody died. Had a couple hecklers, but not on my set. Everything went good. Jeremy's set killed. He did great, you know. And we went on to other venues. And all the ones I did for the radio station went great, and pretty much without a hitch. Everything went great with those. Then it got to be wherever Jeremy was playing, if they didn't have a feature or an opener, he'd call me. I'm like, hey kid, what are you doing this weekend? Hey, I'm gonna be down in Macon, Georgia. Well, I'd never been to Macon, Georgia before. Why not? Ride down there. It's a Saturday, Sunday gig. They're gonna put me in a hotel room for free, you know, get a little money to boot. I watched a man get stabbed in Macon, Georgia in a comedy club, telling jokes. And that's the mark of a true comedian, because you never miss a beat. I never stopped. All I seen him was hunch over, and I'm like, punchline, and keep rolling. The show goes on. They carried him out, and as far as I know, he survived. And so, I mean, I did watch that happen, and I haven't been, actually, the funny thing, I have not been back to Macon, Georgia since. I actually seen a sign. Every time I go to Atlanta at Ed's, I see that sign where you turn to go to Macon, and I'm like, no, I just keep going straight down 85. You know, I mean, we've done some funny stuff. I've seen some crazy things in comedy clubs, and I'm not going to say the club I was at is a coastal town. I will tell you that. They had a green room, you know, just like the green room we got here. And, you know, the only difference is their green room don't have models in it. Ours does. Their green room just has goofy comics in it and like cheese trays. But anyway, I walk in this particular green room. I'm sipping on a beer, whatnot, having a good time, you know, just kind of laid back, kind of getting in my zone, sitting on my black leather casting couch in the green room. You lean back, and there's this dude walks in, and I crap you not, I have never seen so much cocaine in my life on a human being. I had never been around dope like that before. And I'm like, the whole rest of the weekend I was there, I refused to go back in that green room. I literally sat at the bar till they called me up, and I walked to the stage, did my thing, walked right off the side of the stage, back to the bar. I would never go back to that green room, because like I just waiting for the Fed to come in. I was waiting for me to have to call my mother and tell her I was involved in a drug bust, you know, in blah 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 beach. But anyway, so didn't want to be that kid. I didn't want to kill my mama. You know, stand-up comedy was a lot of fun, and I made some really good friends doing comedy, and we had some comedy venues here in Greenville at the time. You know, we used to play in Charlotte and Atlanta a lot, and Columbia, South Carolina, which is our capital. There were the bigger places were there, but we always went to open mics. Well, doing these open mics, we actually, you know, I made some friends. Two comics, two really good friends of mine still to this day. I talk to them weekly. My buddy Jeff, my buddy Brandon Rainwater. And, you know, Jeff Colwell and Brandon Rainwater. And we were just kind of looked out for each other. You know, if we were going to an open mic night, we went in 3 deep, you know, like we all went in, and we helped each other out. And it was funny, you know, Brandon would write a joke and he says, I can't say this joke because I'm black, but you can get away with it because you're white, so you do it. You know, you can say it, I can't. Or, you know, hey, I wrote this joke, if I say it, you know, I'm probably going to get killed. Here you go, Brandon Shores, you know, and it was fun. And Brandon, you gotta understand, everybody had a day job. You know, I was selling new Ford still. And Brandon worked for CF Sauer. And CF Sauer is a mayonnaise plant here in town. He was the maintenance guy. And so he had this little office in the back of the mayonnaise plant. And I would go see, after working at the dealership, I would go see him working third shift at the mayonnaise plant, and me and Brandon would write jokes in the back of the mayonnaise plant. He had galoshes, like those rubber galoshes to his knees, you know, and we'd sit down in his office, he'd kick his feet up, and you know, and we'd write jokes. You know, like, until like, I mean, just the funny things. Like, I mean, the first thing that pops in my head is I remember him talking about, he made a joke about pedophiles one time, and he said, talking about Michael Jackson, he goes, yeah, I said, you know, you ever thought that pedophiles drive by Michael Jackson's house thinking, God, if I only had a Ferris wheel? You know, and I mean, just things like that. And I mean, and it's dumb, but it was so much fun. What's crazy is my buddy Jeff. So Brandon was the Joker, and Brandon still does stand-up comedy. Actually, he's a full-time comedian now, and doing very well. You'll see him at the Comedy Zone all over the Southeast all the time. But me and Jeff were both the hustler types. We always had a little side hustle. Me was selling cars. Jeff, it was selling anything. I mean, mattresses, furniture, bootleg stuff. I mean, anything. Jeff comes up to me and says, I think I'm gonna start a landscaping company. Damn, a legit business. Well, this is right when and this is a few years later, this is when I bought my sign shop, you know, where all the windows came from and all that stuff. And I hate cutting grass with a passion. If you ever see me pushing a lawnmower, you know times are tough. I hate cutting grass with a passion. I said, Jeff, I'm gonna make you a deal of a lifetime. I said, you buy your trucks, I'm gonna letter them, and I'm not gonna charge you a dime. I'll letter every piece of equipment you got. Make you look professional. But I'm never gonna cut grass again. And still to this day, Caldwell Landscaping cuts my grass and does all my yard maintenance. That was a cool thing. Well, then Jeff kind of got the used car bug for me. He started his own used car lot, still has his landscaping company. Now he's got the car lot. Then he opens a furniture store, and it's still doing great. You know, from time to time, he'll call me up and, hey, Brendan's in town. Let's go tell some jokes. I actually was hoping Brandon and Jeff could make it here, and they're actually both out of town right now, and all the quarantine stuff going on and all that stuff. I didn't want them traveling, but I mean, that was the friends I made. And it's kind of funny. So me and Jeff have had a lot of talks about business over the years. And, you know, strategies, you know, marketing a business or a certain type of business that does good. He opened a janitorial business up also. And, you know, he started all these companies from the ground up and just ingenious and runs them great. Jeff is probably one of the best businessmen I've ever dealt with in my life. Actually extremely impressed with him from a guy that I met in a hole in the wall comedy club. He was talking about it and we get to talking in these discussions. We get joking and say, you ever thought in a million years how much stand-up comedy taught you about business and dealing with the public? And if you think about it, you know, and I've said it before, if you can make somebody laugh, you could damn near make them do anything. And it's so true. You know, it gives you power, that power of persuasion, and then it gives you the ability to make them laugh. I mean, you just push them. And then, you know, you could take a situation that's normally a hard blow, but you throw that little joke on it, a little spin to it, you know, and it kind of softens the blow, you know. I mean, like, a favorite quote of mine is, you know, comedy's like a rubber sword. It allows you to make a point without drawing blood. And that's the big thing with that. And I think that helps dealing with problem customers or making customers feel comfortable or selling them something or whatever. You make somebody comfortable, it just makes the whole situation work better. And I mean, it's not just for picking up chicks anymore. Like, you can actually use this to make money with it. And I learned this all from my buddy dragging me out of the house. You know, just aggravating me and finally going to this bar. It just so happens that all these things lined up. It just shows you how crazy life can be. And I don't do stand-up comedy much anymore. Every once in a while I get the wild hair and we'll go to an open mic, like I said, when my buddies are in town or something. You know, I'll let them do the comedy. I'll sit here and sell the cars and make videos for you guys. Guys, stay safe out there. We'll catch you next time at Rabbit's Used Cars. Good.
Funny money. Take one.
God, I'm such a dick. Was that a dick move? I think that was a dick move. But it's okay. It's okay. Cut. What do they call the thing that measures music that goes back and forth?
Spectrum analyzer?
No, monotron.
You know, the thing that...
The drummers use.
Yeah.
Down time.
Metron.
We played with rocks when I was a kid. That's all we had was rocks and sticks. Had half a slinky. I straightened it. That was fun.
Love it.
That's a good vid.
Yep.
I got it. This is a good one.